I welcome Priyanka, Shah ma'am for this podcast. This is where you have to learn something beyond your comfort zone. And trust me, she gave a webinar on Azure Developer Community on quantum machine learning. And trust me, the amount of DMs I got back after the session is such a way that when are you getting her back for the session? And we want to learn something beyond it. She's not a professional in the quantum machine learning field. She does the overall work of the machine learning and using of those models, and she delivers a problem statement based on a machine learning, and she has never delivered a product on quantum machine learning or things like that, but she was able to deliver that talk. And that gave me the confidence of asking her, okay, can you give your insights on the engineering problem statements that you are facing today, like how to approach it and how to be an industry ready engineer. So right now I'm with Priyanka Shah ma'am, teaching myself how to be an industry ready engineer. And also from now on, guys, please don't give any reasons. Attend as many meetups as you can. And of course, she is also giving a lot of series on Azure Developer Community. So make sure that you guys come up and just enjoy that series of session on machine learning, whatever it is. So thank you so much, ma'am, for giving me this podcast. And I think through this podcast and your insights being collectively put inside this podcast is going to enlighten a lot of engineers like me who are about to enter the industry. Thank you so much, ma'am.
In my pleasure. And I'm glad that you're doing this sort of thing, So yeah, glad to be a part of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And let's just begin with this journey as a student. Like, everybody has a story as a developer. Everybody has a story as a student. But, sometimes when we are a student, some factors really influence us in such a way that we make sure that we make our dreams come true. And we have that decision-making capability right now as soon as we join this BTech, the world of BTech and the things like that. So I just want you to address what was your journey as a student and your bachelor's and a master's degree. I think you have a lot to talk in your master's, like MBA. And now you're not working in the Excel sheets in the PPT. So I just want your insights about your student life.
Right. So yeah. So it's actually So I've I'm a bachelor of computer engineering, BTech, right? And after that, I pursued my MBA in IT systems. Okay. But see, when we were doing this BE engineering, that time being a computers person, right? Inevitably first 2 years you will come up with your C programming, and then your Bible is the Let Us See book by Yashwant Sinha, right? Yashwant Kanetkar, by Yashwant Kanetkar. So Let Us See book, and most of the time we used to chase around guys for getting their programs, our programs, like except the Hello World ones. So we increasingly had pointers, double pointers, those sort of things, right? And then I was tired of begging people, hey, please line up in front of the printer, and we used to bribe guys good at programming, guys and girls also at programming, to maybe, hey, I'll buy you a lunch, or I'll sponsor a ticket for you, cinema ticket for you, and please get my printout done, those sort of things, right? So then one fine day I was like, hey, what is the big deal? Like, let me try and write this program. And so there was this, I remember there was this scheduling problem where you had this you have to schedule one particular job into parts and all, and I was very excited by the fact that I could do it on my own without chasing anyone, and just with a little bit of help from reading, self-learning, and that sort of got me hooked onto programming. And I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. I was able to program without anybody's help, and all it takes is logic, right? And so that sort of kind of triggered a thought process. And then as we went on to successive semesters, successive years in engineering, I got into more and more. So there was this subject I remember in our penultimate sem, which is expert systems. So which was like, this was a precursor to AI. It was intelligent systems. And that gave me, I mean, that sort of triggered a thought process that I want to be a part of uh, developing these expert systems, and want to have this. So that time it was not AI or data science, right? So that time it was robotic process automation, intelligent systems, those kind of things. But that was like the basis of AI. So you have predicate based programming, and those those sort of foundations for your Alexa and Cortana and Google today. Okay, so in my final year also we did a very nice project on virtual reality. So we had flash programming going on, and it was an online fashion galleria sort of thing where people can actually choose the material and tailor it to a 3D mannequin and rotate it and see how the design will look like, and the fabric and all, you could see it in real time with the texture of the fabric and stuff. So that got me thinking that yeah, I'm good at programming. I should pursue this. But as it so happens that, and that was then we won one of the best projects also during the final sem. So our project was of the one of the top three. And then somehow because you get enamored by your placement offers and your MBA pay packages. So in that moment I thought, hey, maybe I should pursue my MBA. But in between I got placed in Wipro, and I was placed in the interim between my stint with MBA. So I was placed with Wipro, and I was into again development projects and nice projects, banking, finance, and then Microsoft was my client. So again, a lot of WCF that time was a huge thing, so playing around with Silverlight WCF, and then suddenly, when I was at the peak of my programming, and there were chances that I could have gone to Redmond that time because Microsoft was the client. So I said, okay, no, maybe I should do my MBA. I don't know what was the thinking process, but as soon as I entered MBA, I knew that it was not the field for me. So it was like, uh, I mean, I was a technical person. I couldn't live with PPTs and Excel sheets. So I had to have that programming bug in me, that that the voice inside me, like couldn't let me sit quiet. So even my MBA project, if you ask me, final sem project was grid computing. And my professor was like, who does, for IT systems, who does grid computing project? I'm like, yeah, but this is what, with me, if you want me to do an awesome project, this will be grid computing. So yeah, and then finally, I mean, fortunately it so happened that after my MBA, we had to move to Singapore. And on Singapore I was placed basis my previous technical skills. So I landed back into technology. So I was working with Ministry of Education for their cloud based learning project. So that was, my company was actually working with the Ministry of Education for cloud based, and I got into Microsoft Azure cloud that time. So my love affair with Microsoft dates back to my Wipro days. So from there on, it has always been Microsoft tech stack, Microsoft cloud computing. And yeah, so then once I was again in Singapore, I was pretty much, my job, my professional journey started as a tech person. And I was fortunate to get into good teams, good projects, good technology stacks, wherein it was Spark and Elasticsearch. And it is a very logical journey, right? So you jump from cloud computing to the next step, which is big data. From big data you move on to Spark and distributed computing, Elasticsearch, and the logical step is you're moving out into the world of data science. So I was very fortunate to have mentors who pushed me to do this thing where they saw that I'm passionate about technology. So hey, why not contribute to Microsoft community? So you have this entire MVP community here in Singapore, and they are looking out for people who are willing to contribute to this the communities at large, right? Technological sharing. And they approached me, they mentored me how to deliver your sessions on. And they were saying that there's a glaring lack of females in AI. So there's kind of this skewed gender ratio, absolutely. And Microsoft is more after diversity and inclusion. So D&I is a buzzword everywhere, right? So, and analytics, women in analytics, women in AI, women in technology in general is quite a initiative in all industries, across industries. So then they were like, you're already doing Elasticsearch, you're already doing all these things, so why not come into this AI community, and try to ramp up on those things, create awareness. And at the same time, in my organization also, we got a lot of data science work. So data science projects wherein we had to do natural language processing, financial statement analysis. So it was not as if I had to do an extra work for my MVP AI community, and then for project work I had to do something else. So it was hand in hand. Whatever I was doing in my projects, the data science problem statements, the data science roadblocks which we faced, or even case studies, right? So where we are applying natural language processing, where we are using your clustering classification, how are we using it, where are we using time series forecasting, what sort of algorithms are we using for that. So that became the topics of my AI sessions, right? And yeah, so that is and backed with a very strong support community, mentors here in Singapore. So within a year I became the MVP for AI. And yeah, so the AI journey continues. So this, I mean, once you step in, you realize that it's an ocean, right? I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And with every new quarter, Microsoft is releasing exciting products. And this is I will say exciting time to be in the data science AI field, right? So this is what is going to shape your future. This is what is going to shape your industry. All this digitalization, robotic process automation, intelligent systems, data engineering. So yeah, so all these which were not like a couple of I mean 5 years ago your cloud was a huge buzzword, but now it is like second nature. Most of the organizations are already ramping up to cloud, or have some or their other infra on cloud. And this is what is going to happen with data and AI for the next next foreseeable future. They are going to be the buzzwords. They already are. So many customers are now coming and asking us to do some sort of analytics, some sort of these advanced analytics on their projects. So the pockets are not yet deep. The appetite is there, but like how cloud has matured and people are actually willing to invest. So people are not so much keen to directly give you a huge investment for AI. But what we are seeing is the appetite is there. We just need to address it, increase it, and within the foreseeable future, data and AI are going to be, I mean, they are buzzwords now, so they are going to mature, and maybe quantum computing might be the next big
Next
thing. We
buzzword.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of all these, right, being an MVP is fine, but leveraging a product, right? Like there is a product which is there in the hand, like Azure Kubernetes service, there is bot service, there is something. Sometimes
Correct.
problem statement comes up in such a way that you need a tiny bit of brain, and probably most of it is programming, of course, because Azure functions, if you just look at Azure functions, there is like an huge support which has been given for low code, but yet highest pay role that you can get in solving your business problem statement. So every organization has its own strategy, and every developer has its own insight for it. Like I just want to
Correct.
understand, like, how did this boom of AI really matter for the problem statement to evolve over a course of time? Because when you think of something new as a problem statement, there is everything which is new. Like probably a new platform can give you an insight about, okay, this is a problem statement here. I need to solve something here. So I was
Correct.
thinking of like this data science and this thing, like most of the model ends up in Jupyter notebook sometimes, but sometimes
Correct.
it gets deployed to some extent. So I want to understand like how was those deployments happening? Because you have seen not the early stages, like not 1970s of it, but like you're seeing the 21st century AI. So how has it been evolving over the course of time? Because you talk more of Azure products and things like that. So you even told that every quarter there is a new product coming up. So I just want to
Correct. Yeah.
understand like how is this going to be a new trend? Because there are no code, low code models and everything popping up today. So I just want to understand
Correct.
what's the new trend that you might be working on? Like, do you really think you will be forgetting coding?
No, I mean, see, for all the hype surrounding low code or no code, right? Ultimately, so they can address only so much, right? So maybe very simple. So low code, no code is mainly targeted at managers who are averse or who have that fear of onboarding something technical. So let's say they want to create a simple dashboard for their usual needs. So low code no code is for them, not not to be scared or not to be averse to this programming. So this is I mean, it's kind of a quick win for them that, hey, build your own dashboards. You need not have a programming team at your disposal and ask them to build your dashboards for some simple things like scheduling your meetings or, extracting attachments out of your email for some particular functionality, right? So those sort of things. So low code, no code is good thing to have for starters, like, to get your journey started. And then, but again, for more complex statements, so now let's say you're working with your Azure AI itself. If I give you an example, so you have this automated ML, auto ML, wherein you just know that what sort of problem you are going to solve, whether it's a linear regression, whether it's a clustering, whether it's classification. And then you choose the sort of algorithm. I mean, you choose the case study. I mean, you choose the approach to solve the case study, and then you choose the algorithms you are going to address, whether it is random forest or whether it is a lasso regression or XGBoost and all those things, right? And then you decide the threshold, like, I want this much accuracy, you should terminate your iterations after this. So just sort of configure these things on the portal itself and let the AI engine on the cloud decide the best approach for you and which model gives what your accuracy. So basically, you're just letting it do the Python coding for itself. But then what are the business problems you're trying to address with this, right? So a very simple problem wherein I might have to cluster my support tickets into buckets. So this is a technical ticket. This is something like, more of a password lost or password reset sort of a ticket. This is a cat 1, cat 2 ticket. So that sort of bucketing, maybe I can use this. But now in let's take an example wherein, I have to extract out entities out of my text corpus. Okay, so in that case, will this auto ML work? Absolutely no, right? So because you will have to have your own approaches to that. How, what kind of data you are indexing, what kind of data are you reading, what kind of algorithms you're using for that, whether it's BERT, whether it's BERT squad, whether it is sentence BERT, or whether it is word to heck. Why are you doing topic modeling, those sort of things. So for that, I mean, then as you have deeper understanding and the complex the scenarios get, then you will anyways have to know a robust knowledge of Python and data science libraries to solve those. So I will say that no code, low code is beneficial for scenarios where you quickly want to put a POC and show to a customer that, hey, this is what you wanted and this is what quickly we can do it, right? So but later on, when you're actually working on the project, or when you're trying to deliver something, then of course, like, there's no there's no match for not being able to code, right? So you will require people who are good at coding skills. It could be anything, like Python, could be Scala, could be your Golang, could be your normal C# ML.NET. So yeah, so at least the basics should be there, and you should have the attitude to approach or learn programming languages, right? But yeah, I mean, no code, low code and all are very, very good in the sense that they are time savers in a lot of situation for business development opportunities. So you have a client to whom you can quickly put together something and showcase to him, hey, this is what we can do. And or even for sales people also, to quickly define a problem statement, drag some components and show it to the client, and have his first cut. I mean, have the first cut version, have his first level of feedback, and then engage the technical teams for a much deeper architecture or much deeper coding logic. So yeah, so which is to say that you can never do without programmers.
That's true. That's true, because always we have that quest of optimizing a model for 100% accuracy. Of course, we know that it can't be happening, because even like Jitendra Malik, the one of the big names in the world of computer vision, he himself said that, like, if you want 99.99% accuracy, collect data for 5 years and churn it up. And there is even a saying that you torture your data more, you get more of insights from your data. Kind of a things like that. A lot of times when we look at the Spark and AI, I think of this solid principle from Uncle Bob, who says that what did you do with the Objective C? What did you do with the C++ or something like that? No, I just want to understand this language funda. Like, we have this JavaScript, Python, Scala, a lot of languages popping up, and we can't really keep up with every syntax because
True.
Yeah, I just want to understand, like, do you really think so that industry requires like an hardcore programmer who is illogical in terms of building out this algorithm? Because a lot of times when I think of this problem statements being solved, right, I see even in Kaggle also there are masters who are coming up with different languages. They're giving out the results in different ways. So I just want to understand, like, do you think language will be a barrier for every company which is undergoing this development process of building an AGI, or else something which is an AI system? Like, do you really think so language is important? Like, what is it all
Should
about?
not be, right? So because when you talk of AI, right, so now when you talk of specifics like .NET or whatever, then yeah, that becomes like I'm a .NET based company, so then C# is my logical language, right? But apart from that, if you just look at AI, building AI models, finally what is your end objective? Productionalize the model and consume them to make your predictions, right? So you have to expose some sort of endpoints, or you deploy them as a REST API or whatever that is, container instances, some endpoint running as on Kubernetes containers, right? And then consume them to make some sort of prediction. What language you use is immaterial. So some people might use Python and use a Flask to deploy as an API. For people like me, I will still use Python, but I will deploy it as Azure container instance or a AKS product, right? Kubernetes service as a Kubernetes service. Some people who don't want to go to cloud, so they might be running locally. They might use Databricks, Azure Databricks, and then commission their models. So it's a question of productionalizing your models, where I think, the language is immaterial. So some people are pretty comfortable. So again, you're limited by frameworks also. So let's say you're using Spark, so then you will have to download PySpark if you want to do it in Python, or then you use Scala for your programming with Spark. So there's a lot of choices out there, and increasingly the cloud platforms are supporting a lot of these frameworks as well. So if you look at Azure, they will support R programming, they will support C# like ML.NET, they will support Python, but of course they will support Scala. Okay, and then they will have this Spark library support altogether differently. Databricks is there. So all these are interconnecting at some point of time. The end goal is you want to productionalize your models, and how to do it. Are you going to do it on premise? Are you going to do it on cloud? If you're going to do it on cloud, then you have to somehow find a way to deploy your final model, your pickle file or your joblib file, or your final trained model file somehow to the cloud interface, or have something uh, deployed on your local server and consume it on prem. So but the only thing which I'll tell you is, increasingly developers are expected to know a lot more. So as an AIML developer, I'll tell you, so as an AIML person, so now for the last week we had a business development opportunity where we had to demo text search. So we had to build a text engine for a client, right? And they had given us the specifics, like this is the success criteria and stuff like that. So now to demo that, hey, I can build a nice engine. I have Azure Cognitive Search, I'm indexing my data, and I have an idea of how to have the accuracy. I'm doing modeling, AI modeling on top of that to actually have semantic similarity, semantic search capabilities, right? But at the end, to surface all this out, you still need to have a UI, right? So now for that UI, when you're having a POC, you won't get an army of developers with you, because you're leading a business opportunity. You have only so much budget, and then you have to quickly put up something and show the capabilities. Maybe it's not a wow UI, but at least cobble up basic stuff and show it to them. So I had to do the ML part also, wherein I'm training models. I had to do the infra part also, the DevOps part, where, no, not DevOps part, the data integration part, where I'm reading from blob storage, building ADF pipeline. So the data engineering part also. And then I had to do the Angular UI also to consume the models. So whenever, and your job interviews, if you look at few of the job descriptions in market, for senior architect, or you will be just blown the amount of knowledge you are supposed to know. So you're supposed to know SQL, you're supposed to know UI, which is Angular, React Native, some sort of thing. You're supposed to know, anyway, like data science is your forte, on supposed to know all those things. You are supposed to be conversant, well versed in either of the clouds, which is AWS or Azure or GCP. And plus you should be good with programming patterns, plus you should be good with multiple technologies, like you can interoperate between C# and Java, which I think is a bit unfair given. Or then, you don't, whenever you have these interviews, you just look at the intent of the person, whether he can do all these things. So if you ask me in an interview that, can you tell me what is very specific in Java 9? I mean, how the heck does it matter? I will just Google it, right? That is not going to limit my programming. As long as I know that, in which scenario I'm going to use Java. If I had to interoperate between Linux and Windows, what should I do? What is .NET Core? How do I deploy a .NET Core program to a Linux machine? All these things, right? So day by day, I think, being a tech architect or a developer is more and more demanding, in the sense of the spectrum of technologies you're supposed to be conversant at, and the the amount of knowledge you're supposed to. I can't just say that I know something of that. That doesn't work, because you never know, in an interview, what sort of questions they are going to field at you. So that is something which I think that, industry needs to rethink that approach, that you cannot have microservices plus AI plus UI plus, I mean, come on, give us a break, right? I am not an enterprise, or pay me that much.
That's true, because when I see some job description as a fresher, I wanted to learn Jenkins because there was an interview which asked me for a Jenkins, but now it's a different story. I'm going for my master's. So
Correct.
GRE and IELTS is what I want to do.
Okay.
There's nothing else, there's no head and tail for everything. No, there is a fund of ML ops. AI ops is already there in the market actually, but there are only few companies which have adopted, but not all have given a go for this thing of like, okay, we are going to implement AI ops for the AGI based system. We are going to ML ops for this production problem. I think probably production is breaking because of we are changing approaches. We are not just having a unified approach in architecting a solution. That's what I feel today when I look at when I read some research papers, or else when I look at some case studies of some companies. I feel like, why didn't they unify the architecture? Why are they having sparse-based approaches? And every team has their own approach today. So I just want to understand, like, what's the complexity of architecting a solution today? Because you told you started with the Spark and this thing, that thing pops up all of a sudden. You're supposed to learn this, you're supposed to learn that. And sometimes you even told that you're not an enterprise, so pay me, or else just give me a break or something like that. So I just want to understand, like, how difficult is it to architect a solution today? Like you told this and that to be given out from one developer or an architect now. Or else he has a team of developers, he has to deliver that product. So
Correct.
I just want to understand, like, the complexity of architecting a solution today on an ML and AI based problem statements. How is it like changing? And also, how are we evolving in terms of approaches today? That's what my question is.
Basis approaches, right? They are pretty well defined because of the cloud support which you have. So if you look at Azure Cognitive Services or Amazon SageMaker offerings and everything, so the amount of services which all these cloud platforms are giving out for AI as a service, okay, those are pretty impressive. So if you look at Azure Cognitive Services, which is form recognizer, okay, so you can actually label your PDF documents and extract out information from that optical character recognition, and you can train your data very easily, right? So annotate the data. There are a lot of tools there. So basis the approach itself, it is pretty defined or organized, right? The problem arises basis expectations of the customer. So what they see is, hey, I am purchasing your solution. So I mean, you're building a platform. So I'm purchasing that solution. It should work out of the box, right? So let's say you have having this enterprise search engine. Now, let's say your data accumulates over the years. You will have to do some sort of manual intervention or human in loop to kind of, upgrade your data quality or tag your documents, which is what happens with Google search also. They have not built an engine and kept there. Every day they have to do a lot of housekeeping work, I'm sure, indexing new documents and doing the search engine optimization on documents. And I mean, I'm sure, they have their hands full. So it's not as if they built an engine and they're sitting back and the engine is doing its job over the years. So they have to understand that whether it is AI or ML, first of all, 99.99% accuracy for certain these sort of NLP scenarios is a myth. You can still achieve it on some very constrained problems, so very limited, bounded problems. But
like
for
probably some less number of classes attached to the data
yeah,
set or
like
something.
for example, like the ticketing, like bucketing of tickets or bucketing of articles, whether it's news, entertainment, politics, and sports, those sort of things, right? So that can still be achieved to an extent. Computer vision problems can achieve a lot of accuracy vis-a-vis the object detection or human detection, landmarks, celebrities, because you have a lot of pre-trained data sets on huge, humongous text corpora. So which but let's say, like, enterprises coming with the document, which is like document search algorithms very specific to their enterprise. So I want a search engine based on my enterprise documents. So then you cannot, like, just one time index all the documents and then next time you index without doing any sort of tagging, annotation, doing any metadata, and everything has to be out of the box. So there is where, and plus they think, hey, you're using Azure AI, you're using Azure Cognitive Search, so why should I pay you so much for that? So if we budget something at 1 million or something, they'll be like, hey, can you do it at 200K? Can you do it at 300K? Something like that. And as I said, right, appetite is there, but typically AI ML projects will not last like your normal apps and cloud infra project wherein it goes on for years. So AI ML will come at a point when your enterprise is already matured at a certain point. So if your data is all over the place, then first of all you have to maybe do your data modernization, and on top of that you will have analytics. So most of the time data and AI go hand in hand. So when customers come in for AI solution, they are willing to modernize their platform, the first step is first get your data in order and then you can do advanced analytics. So it typically converts to a data engineering project first, where it is a data platform modernization, and then you will have intelligence built on top of it. So so that is, that is where organizations are still lacking that sort of a bit of maturity. But I'm sure, like, once they are convinced of the benefits which AI is going to give them, discovering that hidden unconscious needs, or discovering something which is they themselves don't know what their data can do, the potential which their documents have or the data has, right? So they are aware of the capabilities, and as regards to the solutions out there, they are pretty much standardized, so they know that we are going to use Azure, or we are going to use Google, or we are going to use AWS, and you can solution it accordingly. So I'm heavily solutioning on based on C#, Microsoft tech stack, right? And of course you need to still have understanding of other NLP libraries, like BERT is there, and TensorFlow, PyTorch, Keras, right? For various purposes. So yeah, the only challenge which I feel is aligning the expectations of the client with respect to the output which they are getting. So they are like, hey, wow, you did the NLP, now whatever I speak you should be able to identify. It's not the case, right? I mean, even OpenAI GPT-3, I'm sure
Even in the
might not
super glue,
address
it's
100.
still 14th rank. It's not the best version of NLP model, but it's hyped because of the amount of data set it has been trained on.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, setting the expectations right, and defining this. And what happens is, in many organizations, the people who are leading the the business practice are not as such data science people, or they are not, very well versed in the tech terminology or the understanding of data science. So they are like, hey, if I want to, give a negative feedback for this search result, so I click a thumbs down. Immediately next time I search, it should not show me the search result. Doesn't happen, right? I mean, the learning is over a period of time. So that concept somehow is like, hey, why it was over a period of time? If I give thumbs down, it should not show, it should not surface. But then they don't know the amount of effort it goes into indexing the documents, and actually learning to re-rank the ML machine learning behind the scenes going on. So that I feel is a bit, challenging, but it's fun at the same time to see and to learn from customer perspective. Sometimes even we learn that they are like, hey, our normal system can do that. So sometimes what happens is we get carried away and we solution something very beautiful in AI ML, and then someone comes and tells us, hey, my analyst can do this in Excel. So has happened, right? So you overthink sometimes there's no AI ML to be done, and it's just normal, some macro you need to write, and you can very well get the desired output, right? So yeah, so it can happen, right? Sometimes it's an overkill, sometimes you overthink, sometimes you over solution, right? Just to, okay, AI, data science. So sometimes, you have to set the customer expectations also correct, that, hey, this is not a data science, this is only data platform modernization, and you will get the output as Power BI reports for that matter. That is not analytics, that is reporting. Analytics will come when, you are forecasting on your data, or basis your data, you're forecasting some future trends. So that sort of end user expectation settings we have to do, right? It is evolving. I think 5 years back they didn't even know what was dashboards and what was, analytics, and now people are talking of that. People are even people in their mid 50s and all, who are at senior positions, are coming and telling us that, hey, I have 20 years of data, so what sort of unconscious needs my data can tell me if I go into data analytics, or if you can run some sort of ML for me and tell me what are the precursors to achieve this. So which is heartening to see that there is people are waking up to the need for AI ML. It's just that the end output which which they expect out of it is something which needs to be tuned to the reality.
No, because when we see scale deployments, like deployment at scale, like problem statements, like you can think of Hotstar, which used to stream World Cup, which had a rapid spike of number of visitors who come up. Or else you can
Correct.
think of something like leveraging the potential of Kubernetes to the greatest extent, where you have a sudden increase in, we all used to hear that, this website is down that point of time. We can't say that to the Google today because they need to deploy at a scale. And
Correct.
when you think of the problem statements, such as like probably self-driving car or something, it can't break all of the sudden when it's driving. That's the most stupidest way of trashing some technology and saying that this didn't work. And like even Uber also has faced a lot of issues like this. And when you think of deployment at scale, like you have seen a lot of production problems which have been deployed at
Yeah,
scale.
right.
Like you have also seen you yourself told that you need to do Angular there, you need to do this thing there, that thing there. There is a problem statement in that of this scalable deployments. That's what I would love to say. Like when we are deploying at scale, how not to get overwhelmed. Like, probably I'm a fresher who just gets in with some knowledge of like, okay, some problem statement, just give me this problem and I'm going to solve this. But at the end, the production system has a different story to
Correct.
say to me. Like, I need to do this, I need to do that. But I just want to understand, how is this deployment in scale making that humongous change in the way in which architecting a solution is also becoming complex? Because you told everything that you had did for saying to the customer, this is how data centric we need to go tomorrow, instead of being model centric. I just want to understand this, how to deploy a model at scale. That's my question.
Yeah, so see, for deploying model at scale, right? For we look at the data the data, what you can say, size of the customer, whether it's geographically distributed, whether it's concentrated on one location. Do they need to have some sort of high availability, redundancy, disaster recovery functionalities? Okay. Do they need to have, clustering in particular? So let's say if you're talking of indexing, right? And then you have a lot of documents like about 5 TB or whatever, 10 TB of data, then of course you will need to have different search indices working together, different nodes clustered across partitions and stuff like that, right? So when you're deploying in production, of course you will have a lot of those challenges. Like you will have to have a DevOps in place who can channelize your deployments accordingly. So deployment in different zones, configuring them for high availability, configuring application insights on top of that to show you failures, to show you how many requests crashed, what was the throughput, what was the response time. And so lot of things there depends on the solution which you're developing. For a data platform modernization solution where you're doing data warehousing, data mart, and analysis, AAS, which is your cubes and all. So how are you sourcing the data, from what sources? Do you really want it to be like, refresh at particular intervals, or whether it has to be real-time transactions flowing in every time? And all your cloud infrastructures, right, that way they provide you a lot of capabilities around those things. So whether it is a real-time communication via some messaging hubs, or IoT communication, right? Connectivity to different devices, ability to crawl data or to ingest data from a variety of sources, right, from SharePoint to on-prem to Salesforce data sources and stuff like that, ERP, CRM, SAP. So cloud platforms are bringing the on-prem world, closer to the cloud, right? And then you just need to know the data size, the correct connectors you are going to use to ingest the data. And while productionalizing, what is the requirement, like how highly available the system should be, how robust, what should be throughput, what should be the response time. So yeah, so which is like, again, mandated by the client requirements, and uh, how much robust or how much accurate or how much highly available they want the solution to be. So tools are in place, right? And you need to have a right set of people there. So people who are from the infra, who can address the networking concerns, address the role based access issues, like moving of resources from one subscription to another, what happens, and setting the bastion controls and vnets. And then you need to have people who are good at deployment, writing scripts for automated deployment, CI/CD, right? People. So when you're productionalizing huge models, you need to have a team which is well versed in a lot of things. So like if it is ML, then you will absolutely need to have data scientists, but need to have AI ops or ML ops guys as well. You need to have those people who are well versed in microservices for your UI, communicating to your machine learning models, deploying them into the cloud as whatever services, or web apps. Or if you have people in bots, then they should probably know how to deploy the bots web using the bot framework, or as web app chat bots, and how to configure the channels of communication. If it is a voice bot, on what channel you should open the communication, whether it's as a two-way handshaking. So yeah, I mean, productionalizing your models and deploying them at scale is, I will say, a effort involving a lot of synergies between people of different skill sets, right?
Yeah.
And the size of the team and the skill sets are dictated by the requirement, or how complex your client wants the solution to be.
That's what really makes the difference, right? We are basically understanding the fact that we are supposed to deliver a solution which is going to make money. That's what it is all about. It's not like, okay, it's not like a research problem statement where if you're getting a 90% accuracy, they'll wait and they'll fund you to some extent, and you'll have something. So that's why I want to be in the safer side. I want to go for the research. Not the production system, which is going to break every now and then. So I just want to understand, like, how is this learning happening from you? Because you have a full-time job. and you need to put in something as fuel inside your brain, and that's what you also deliver. And trust me, you have made a lot of impact. Like the quantum machine learning part, I think I left it all of the sudden when I was in probably second year. Like I didn't touch it afterwards. Like I just went for an hour class and then I told, okay, this is not for me. I can't deal with such kind of problem statement. So I just want to understand like how to learn, because most of the times when I talk to a lot and a lot of engineers who are there like in the industry for like 10 years, 20 years, they have literally told me, you guys are students and you don't have time. And some people have told me, now enjoy doing whatever webinars you want. Then after joining work, you don't get it. And I want to understand
Correct.
like
Yeah.
how to learn and how to manage things up here for the work, which you have a full-time job. You're supposed to say to your boss, hey boss, I'm going to mint some money for you. Just pay me some salary. And also you have to fuel your brain up with some new things. So I just want to understand, how do you manage that?
Oh my God, that would, deserve a separate topic altogether
Yeah, I know.
for time management, because it's not an easy thing. So, mind you, so right now when I'm doing this podcast, my husband just peeped in for like 5 times because he was waiting for me to have coffee. and and he was like,
Happens.
oh, what is going on? What is, I mean, you never told me you're doing this. And as it is, he's also pretty technical. He's the ASEAN architect in IBM, and I mean, yeah, he's also caught up. So we have a very limited time together on weekdays, especially, where we get some breathing space and quickly catch up and debate about what's an AI versus Azure AI. So, just kidding. Yeah. So so which means it's a very tricky thing to manage your activities, your community activities, your MVP, and your self learning, and your job scope. So as I was telling you that, for my current requirement, I had to spend time, like, most of the time, midnight, all I burnt was for doing the UI thing. uh, Machine learning was taken care of, which is like, because you're well versed at it, you will just do it like this. But then UI controls, how do you operate it? So even if you have the working knowledge to actually set them up and get the code working is another ball game altogether, right? So yeah, I mean, that sort of balancing is tricky sometimes. It also depends a lot on your passion. So sometimes I might say that, hey boss, this is not my cup of tea, better get me a UI developer, then only this will be delivered. Otherwise forget it. I mean, we'll show them in some sort of API tool, a postman tool, how it works, right? So it is also up to you, how much time are you willing to invest, and how much time do you really have at your disposal. How much keen are you to explore these technology things? So nowadays, a lot of people, if you look at the resumes of people on LinkedIn or anywhere, most of them are doing AI and data science. So I don't know how that is, because people in marketing also doing some sort of, selling some sort of bot tools, or internally doing some sort of market research, or they are also claiming that they do AI. Someone else also claims they do AI. So I will say that, identify your area of interest. Just
The
just
niche that you
Yeah,
really want to work on.
yeah, correct. And then accordingly spend time. So for me, I'm fortunate that what I do is also, part of what my community work is all about. So I work in AI, and my community work is about AI. So I don't have to spend a lot of time for my community work, because my case studies, which I do day to day basis, become my topics in my sessions, right? And I have the code at my disposal. I can just the resources and all I can demo from my workstation. So yeah, most of the times I don't have to uh, have a separate working session or separate time dedicated to that. But nonetheless, I mean, that's a very tightrope walk which we have to do, balancing the time between projects, between work, between client, between household things, personal time, hobbies, right? So and when the rate at which technology is evolving, right, I think it is impossible for us to play catch up with it. So every other day, like something new, quantum is there tomorrow. And let me be very honest, once versions change, right, like let's say they come up with the graph version 2.0, or angular version 11. there will be no telling that the technology might have completely changed, like on its, it would have turned upside down. So whatever you learned till one particular point of time is now again, you have to unlearn that and relearn something new. Happened with Angular, right? Angular JS, we perfected. Angular 2.0 came, was totally, it was TypeScript and was completely altogether a different ball game. Graph API version 1.1, they come up with something. 2.0 is released, then suddenly all the concepts are redundant in 1.0. So that's what I say, that depends on your interests, how the business problems you're solving, how abreast you are with recent happenings, what is the need for your job to be abreast with all these current happenings. So like, let's say you are a technical director of a particular organization, in which case you will have to know at least on the surface of things that, hey, this is the newer product, and this is what it has to offer. Maybe at a developer stage, you might need to know more about the feasibility, that okay, this new service is out, but can I use it as yet in my product, right? That's about it.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of insights about what we should be doing. In a layman terms, you just told them, just go start working. That's it. It's not about it. It's all everything. If it's complex, it is complex because AI ML didn't evolve in like 2 years or something. It took a lot of years of like involvement of different scientists, hours and actually billion hours of work probably. I don't know how many researchers came up and just gave out these topics, like I think probably AlexNet, and then everything started making sense to the world of deep learning. I think thank you so much, ma'am, for giving this wonderful insights about your experience and your MBA that you didn't use anymore after doing it.
I wouldn't say I didn't use it anymore, but I am the person who didn't leverage on it. That doesn't deter people from choosing what they are good at, right? So I wouldn't belittle anyone.
Yeah, even MBA institutions are doing a lot of AI ML, like game theory. There are other things which are popping up. Financial domain is good. If you want to mint some money, just learn AI ML and just know some balance sheet work. You're good enough to do anything. So thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful podcast. And hopefully I do a part 2 of this, if possible. Let's see.
Let's try that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, thank you. You take care, Vishwas, and
yes,
have a good day.